Hey everybody, today we're doing a garage install on my 2021 Jeep Gladiator. I'm Brian. This is Phil. Yeah, Philip has a lot of experience with cars and I don't, so he's going to be helping me in the garage. So there's a few things that I've noticed that are weak on the Gladiator. So we'll be trying to upgrade those parts and make it a little stronger off-road. We're putting the Rock Krawlerr Triangulated 4-link system in the back. And we're going to be putting the ARB differential cover on it. These Powerstop, like extreme upgraded brakes front rear. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I hope this helps somebody. Like I said, we're going to be doing it on the garage, so you can kind of see what you may want to do if you're doing it on the floor in your garage. So in order to drop the spare tire, you're going to use the pieces that came in your jack. This end is going to go in the slot into there, and you're going to turn this to drop it. Okay.
Now, you're basically going to, obviously in a garage is much different than being off on the side of the road, but due to the weight of the tires, we put a piano dolly under there to support the weight so we can move it out easier. Once you get the tire down on the ground, you're going to have to be able to reach underneath there to grab the bracket that holds the rim in order to pivot it at about a 45-degree angle to slide it up out of the rim.
37-inch tires, these probably weigh
90,
85, 90 pounds.
85, 90 pounds each.
So on the side of the road, if you're trying to drop it, you may want to put something under so you can get your hand under it to loosen that.
Yeah.
We're about to put the jack stands in the front just to keep it stable. So we've got 3-ton jacks on both sides. So just in front of your cross member here is where we're going to put the jack stands. So we're actually lifting the truck at the first weld mark behind that. Good.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
You're doing it this way so that the truck is still supported on the front axle to give us stability once we pull the rear end full height. That keeps our tires on the ground.
So we're about 3 inches back from where the arch of the frame starts to curl up. And then, yes, we're just going to lower it slowly.
Yeah.
All right. So you can see we're about 3 inches back from where the arch of the frame starts. And now we're going to lift the back up. So we're lifting up the back one side at a time to keep from pushing the front jack stands over.
We're putting the jack under the rear axle to take some of the weight off of the sway bar links. And at that point, we're just basically suspending the truck without putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on the sway bar system, which we will be taking off in order to pull the axle out from underneath the truck. But we're just doing preliminary steps to get to that point. So the next thing we're going to do is get the pressure off the sway bar, get the links out, and then pull the tires off and get set up for us to be able to put the axle on jack stands on top of heavy piano dollies to roll it out from under the truck.
What size driver?
It is an 18 millimeter. And it came off nice and easy and clean. Being due to the fact that we don't have any weight against the links. So I would highly advise you to put a jack under the rear axle.
Yeah, we're taking the rear tires off. We've been braking before we lifted it. If you have the foresight, you can brake them before you lift it. If not, you can still get it done.
The another big reason for putting the jack underneath the pumpkin of the rear end to lift it up is to keep the unnecessary stress and pressure off of the brake lines. Keep in mind your brake calipers are still connected to the rear end, but yet they only have a limited amount of travel, especially when we're getting into this phase of deconstruction. We will get the wheels off and then pull the brake calipers loose and support them underneath the carriage of the truck as we go further here. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and pull the brake calipers loose from the rear end and support them. Now we will be doing a complete brake change, converting over to Powerstop. Right now, really the only thing supporting the rear end is the jack itself. The shocks are still connected, and so are our brake calipers, and then obviously the arms. So we're going to take the brake calipers off, both sides, then pull the shocks. And at that point, we'll be to the point to where we can release the rear end with the long arms, so the arms that are on an inspector.
The Powerstop brakes that I ordered are for heavy towing and off-road use, so they're an upgraded, slotted, with ceramic pads. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go ahead and be doing this, you may as well replace those as well. You can see these are a little bit worn.
Okay, the brake calipers themselves are typically connected with a 10 millimeter, and I know a lot of people like to use impacts. I would highly recommend you use a ratchet during this process, just so you can feel if there's any binding going on during the removal process. It's not like they're on there super tight, so you want to be able to feel it and spin it out with your hand. It's going to be very important to make sure you keep all of the hardware coherent with each assembly. This way you don't run into a situation where a bolt doesn't fit going back together. So I brought wire ties to secure the brake calipers, and I'll take care of that here shortly. Okay, the main mounting hardware on the caliper retention is going to be a 18 millimeter. So they like to mix and match on the vehicle between standard and metric. Why, that's anyone's guess, but. And the truck's got roughly 85,000 miles on it at this point in its life. This is going to be the first brake job that's been done to it. As you can see, the brakes are wore pretty well. They're fairly close to the feeler gauges, which would be that squeal you get when you apply the brake, knowing that the pads are shot. I mean, my recommendation would be that if you have them inspected at 50,000,
I have a paint marker, it's a tire marker, and we're going to mark everything so it goes back into the same holes, just because if they were machine driven, it may make a difference in how they bolt back in. Obviously laying on my back here under the truck, a lot of people skip over this important part of being able to slide the axle out, and that's going to be disconnecting the emergency brake cable from the brake system. Now, there are brackets on the axle that are retain the cable. There's a retaining clip here that snaps into the axle itself. They do sell handy little pliers for it, but again, we're working on our back in the garage. So the alternative to that is to
utilize a hose clamp and slide it up over the clip. If you can see here, it just has little finger tabs. Slide it up over it and tighten it down, and just basically grab the cable assembly and wiggle it until it starts. You don't want to clamp this hose clamp down excessively tight because you still need to be able to slide. So once it pushes in on the fingers, you can literally wiggle the cable out and it will come free from the axle. We're unbolted up here on the top, so we can slide the axle out without damaging any of the cable systems in the truck. So that's a process that a lot of people just skip right over, and I understand why, because it's a little tedious, but take your time and it will come out. Okay, so we're getting ready to disconnect the drive shaft on the JT. It's a little different on the JLs because they're so much shorter and they don't have the carrier in the center of the truck like the JT. So I have everything unbolted, and I put a strap across just mainly so, since we're not changing the drive shaft, I don't want to go through the whole process of pulling the whole drive shaft. I'm just basically going to take it loose from the rear end and allow it to sit on the strap until we're ready to reassemble after we get the kit put on the rear axle. So, I mean, you don't have to be afraid of utilizing the force of the hammer. As you can see, it doesn't take much force to get the drive shaft to come loose. So there we go. The drive shaft is now disconnected, being supported by the strap. So we don't have to worry about it dropping to the floor or overstretching the expansion joint in the drive shaft on the JT. So we're getting close now to pull the rear axle. I have the shocks disconnected. All the brake system is completely disconnected, including the emergency brake cables, the shocks. Right now, all we have left are the arms, and we're getting ready to drop the axle down a little bit more. First, I'm going to pull the bolts loose on the arms, and after which I'll completely remove them, and the axle will go on sawhorses, or I'm sorry, on piano dollies, on jack stands, and we will pretty much slide it right out. So that's the state that we're at this point. Let me go ahead and get the air locker disconnected in the vent tube.
While it's low, while it's down.
It's low, and then we'll pull the arms, because the arms are in fact keeping it from allowing the springs to come out. I need a shop vac.
Yeah.
I don't want to pull this airline loose unless I have. Give me some of that Gorilla tape over there so I can put some tape over the top of this barb sticking out for the vent. Little 2-inch piece is all I need. I just want to make sure we don't get any debris down in this. All right, another little piece of tape. 2 of them actually.
So I've got air lockers. We're taping over the holes, the lockers.
You want to make sure you're disconnecting the ABS sensors on the rear, and then you got the vent that's also got to be disconnected. And ultimately, all I'm doing is putting some Gorilla tape over them just so we ensure we don't get any debris inside the system while it's disconnected. The truck does have a 3-inch lift kit on it, so the springs are much more supported than the stock springs from the factory. So that's pretty much where we're at this point.
All right. Krawler.
So you can work this side, I'll get in there and hold it in place.
I think it's loose. Yeah, it's loose. Hold on.
Okay.
me check. I think I'm gonna put a little bit more on the axle. I'm gonna bring it up a little bit more.
Get the top one off on this side over here,
Right.
and we'll leave the bottom over here connected. We got the top here.
Yeah, it should give you more drop.
It should give us enough drop.
Right. The top, we should have probably taken the top off.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
But we can still just
I mean,
stick
we
the
can
bolt,
always
stick the bolt back
just
in.
put the bolt back in.
Oh, actually, that's out of position now. Well, I don't know that I would drive like that.
Sure would. As long as I'm not in it. Okay, so we are to the point to where we're getting ready to pull the springs out from underneath the truck. As you can see, we still have a jack under the rear end supporting the axle just for stability reasons. We have gone ahead and removed the upper control arms, and that has allowed us the ability to get the axle down far enough to pull the springs out that are no longer under any tension. So Brian's going to tip his side of the axle up in order for me to be able to reach in here and pull the spring out under no tension whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and show you that now. A key thing here is that you're going to want to break all the bolts loose. Do not necessarily take them out on the lower. On the upper, completely remove the bolts and the uppers. Take the bolts loose on the lowers, but keep them in play so you still have the axle stable so it doesn't pivot or fall to one side or teeter-tot on your jack. At this point, the control arms will not let the axle come loose from the truck, which is what we're looking for. But we have the ability to flex the axle the way we want now and get the springs out. So Brian, go ahead and tip the axle my way and I'll pull the spring. Okay, as you can see at that point, the springs are going to come right out. Now the stock springs will probably come out a lot easier. These are 3-inch lift with a progressive spring rate. So they're a lot more stout than the stock springs, but it's still generally the same scenario. So we should be good. If I pick up over here, you should be able to reach in there and just grab the spring and pull it out.
Okay, pull it out. Okay.
Okay. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and jack the axle back up and get our piano dollies with the jack stands in position to support the axle in order to roll it right out.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start jacking the axle up. How much do I need?
What we did is we have two commercial grade piano dollies, and we screwed 2 layers of 1/2-inch plywood on them just for stability. The weight I'm really not concerned with. Ready?
Yeah. All right.
Try and get that jack stand right in the center.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So essentially, we've got it supported. We should be able to lower it down and have it still be supported on the piano dollies. Ta-da!
All right. So the axle is now sitting on the dollies and the stand. I'm going to go ahead and slide the jack out of the way.
Now we're gonna remove the lower control arm and drop it all the way and pull it the rest of the way out of the truck.
ready to pull this side, you can drive this axle right up underneath here.
Dirt. Georgia mud.
All right.
Alright, everything's loose on the axle. Pull the brakes out of the way.
Got to keep in mind, even though the axle's sitting on this stands, that it can still pivot. So you would just want to make sure you're careful with it as you rotate it out. Well, there you have it. We have the axle out from underneath. And technically, the way ARB explains how they would like you to do it is you're gonna line up the two covers, and you're gonna put a straight edge across. Obviously, we know that there's a dipstick inside the new ARB cover, which is a fantastic item. You can check your fluids as much as necessary. However, the dipstick has no indication on it as to where the true level should be. In the factory cover, you know that the fill port on it, you're filling the fluid up to until that port, and the fluid starts to come out of that port, you know you're good. With the ARB cover, the drain is in a much more convenient place, and the fill is from the top of it. So right now we're just lining up the bolt holes, and we're going to put a straight edge across the two in order to get a mark on the dipstick, and they recommend you put a mark in it with a file, so that way you know exactly where it needs to be and it doesn't wear off.
The ARB cover is a different shape, so your fluid level is going to be different. So you can try to measure it in quarts, but it's better to have the dipstick because you'll get the same amount of fluid as you would have with a different displacement.
As you can see, all it is a fine line that's been grooved into the dipstick so you know where the fluid level is going to be. Okay, we are to the point to where I've cleaned out the differential cover, cleaned out the differential in and of itself, utilized WD-40 just to rinse out everything within. I would not recommend using any kind of a degreasing solvent because you don't want to break down your fluid when you add it back in. So everything is cleaned out, and we're getting ready to reinstall the new ARB cover. One nice thing is the ARB cover, not only does it have a magnet on the dipstick, but the drain port also has a very strong earth magnet in it to collect any shavings. So the simplicity of the cover, but yet the benefits that it gives you far exceed the factory covers. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this now. I have a couple bolts in here and a new gasket, and just for aligning purposes in order to get the cover back in its position. So the new bolts from ARB they're recessed, so it gives you much better protection in regards to anything impacting the bolts, and they are of a hardened grade steel, and they are an Allen key instead of just was it 10 millimeter on the factory cover. Once you have everything kind of lined up here, I know a lot of people like to use impacts just for speed purposes, but I'm kind of an old school guy. I want to feel it to ensure that there's no binding. I'm just going to lightly snug up the first two to ensure my alignment is correct, and then I'll hand start everything and then go in a crisscross pattern. ARB, make sure that you identify the longer bolts. They do go in specific positions on the cover. Hate for you to get it all together and make that mistake and have to take things apart. There are 4 long bolts, and the rest are all short.
So the 4 long ones go into that center of the plate.
Yeah, they go into the center of the diff cover. I mean, obviously, it's much easier for us because we are doing a lot of other mods to the rear end, which will be detailed in this video itself. But it's a lot easier to work on when you have the thing out.
It wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be hard to do it.
It would not be hard to do in the truck.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like probably one of the first upgrades that if you're wheeling, especially your front diff cover, you want to replace that just because the factory, it'll get beat up. That's the lowest point basically on the Jeep, so it's always hitting rocks.
And the nice thing about the ARB covers in their design is, per ARB, when you install these covers, they add 996 foot-pounds of extra rigidity to the axle in and of itself. So it makes the axle more solid and less likely, if you're wheeling hard, to break. So for the stock guys out there, it's definitely a good upgrade. You'll see that we're going to the extreme on this truck. When we start welding and braces in on over the top of the axle that we got from Rock Krawlerr. Okay, so we've got the new ARB cover on, and the differential is filled up with new fluid. We utilize the Lucas 75W140 full synthetic that has the additive in it. It's roughly 3 quarts. The nice thing with the new ARB cover is it's very easy to check the fluid level and get it right. We're to the point to where we're going to pull the factory rotors off of the rear end here, and we're going to be installing the Powerstop in place. The Powerstops, you need to pay attention to the labels that come from the manufacturer, and it's very important you get the rotor on the correct side to ensure that the cooling ports and the slots are in the right rotating direction. So make sure you follow that. When you're removing the rear rotors, a lot of mechanics will know this. You want to spray the WD-40 in there, let it sit for a few minutes, because these have a tendency to get stuck, even though they're a rotating mechanical device. And when that does happen, typically there's a T30 screw on both sides that must be removed in order for the rotor to come out. In our case, brand new truck, bought right off the lot, the T30 screws were not installed on either side. The key to getting these off is, in a lot of cases, they'll just wiggle off. If they've been through, and this truck's been through a lot of off-road and a lot of off-roading events. So in some cases, they'll be stuck on there pretty good. The easiest way to get it, if I was repurposing the rotors, I would not do this. However, we are not. So I'm just utilizing a hammer to break the initial tapping, beating on it, just tapping. And then at which point, once it breaks free, you can grab them, wiggle them, pull them right off. We are getting ready to install the Rock Krawlerr brace. It's going to be welded and bolted into the axle. You need to drill out the top 2 bosses, and they provide you with a drill bit and also a tap to tap these to a larger diameter. We're going to use the factory bolts on the front, and we're drilling in with a 1/2-inch drill bit and tapping for the heavier bolts on the top 2 bosses. I've already kind of pre-started the hole on the first boss. You'll notice that I identified the depth of the boss itself, and I marked it with a paint marker on the drill bit so I know I don't drill too far into the pumpkin. So with that being said, drilling is a little bit tedious due to binding, but for the most part, we're going to go ahead and get it drilled out. And that'll do it on that side. So I'm going to do this one here. You just want to let the drill do its work. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. And then even still, it might bind up on you a few times. But take it nice and slow, and let the drill do its job. And just like that, we are ready to start tapping. So, I mean, they give you good quality tools, hardened drill bits, so you don't really have any issues with it. I have both of them drilled out. I'm going to go ahead and shop back everything up. And then I'm going to use a good cutting oil on the tap. And at that point, I will start tapping. We have everything kind of cleaned up here with the shop vac, and I'm getting ready to tap the bolt holes in the axle. This can be kind of a tedious operation here. You need to ensure that first and foremost that you have a quality cutting fluid and a good tap device to do this. We're utilizing Tap Magic to keep the tap nice and cool. I am going to go ahead and put some cutting oil on the surface, and then I'm also going to put a little bit on the threads of the tap. Continue to do that during the entire tap process. So positioning the tap straight is very important. And once the tap starts to cut, you'll feel it start to engage the metal. You don't just want to stick it in there and keep cranking it down. You want to get it started, and as it starts to cut, you want to spin a little, back it off a little, just to keep the cutting threads clear. So it'll cut through the metal relatively quickly. However, the further you go, the more pressure you're putting on the tap itself. And you don't want it to bind up. So run it down, back it off. Watch your oil. You want to make sure that you're keeping it well lubricated. Follow up with you here once I'm ready to set the truss and everything. Right now, I'm just about done tapping both sides. We are going to install the Rock Krawlerr truss over the pumpkin. I already have the holes tapped out, so we're good to go there. I have 2 bolts in here just to get the alignment correct, because you're going to want to mark the axle. Rock Krawlerr recommends that if you're going to truly off-road your vehicle, that not only do you use the U-bolts, but you weld the axle. You weld the truss to the axle. I have everything kind of marked with paint marker so I know where I need to grind off the paint so the weld adheres to the steel better. I'm going to go ahead and pull these bolts out. Take a grinder. I've already kind of started the pre-grind on it, but just for purposes, you want to grind it down. Rock Krawlerr does a great job of preparing the truss for you and a nice finish. Unfortunately, same thing as the axle. You're going to need to grind this surface so that your weld bonds to the steel properly. And then we will be ready to MIG weld this brace. Will you bolt it, clamp everything, and bolt it down, and then I will do a buzz weld on both sides of the axle in a 2-pass process to ensure that the weld is as strong as the steel.
Yeah. Problem is, one of the wheels is bump stops are here.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Alright, so
Just mind your bump stop. Mine, it's actually on my side. It's gonna be over there. My bump stop's pretty much lined up.
yeah, so is mine.
Okay.
Because I can go ahead and put the emergency brake cables back in.
Yeah.
And get the little bracket back up on there, pump in there, bolt it down. I got the bolts right here. So we are to the point to where we are reconnecting the axles slid back under the truck. We are connecting the arms, the new arms now. So it's going to be really important to note that, and this is kind of difficult to see in a lot of the photos don't do any justice whatsoever. Let's put it that way. But and a lot of people in the videos that do this on a lift make it look a lot easier than it actually is. The main thing is on the arms and the angle that the arm sits. So this is the upper arm. It's gonna sit basically in a horseshoe fashion, and it has to connect to the frame first, and then drop in on the back side into the cradle. So with that being said, it's ultimately going to come in this angle. We're going to go ahead and fit. The keynote here is that the factory welded end is going to be the end that goes to the frame. The adjustable goes into the cradle on the rear end. And there again, it's a little bit of a tedious operation on your garage floor, but the bolts will go in. They might take a little bit of persuasion to do it.
Shut up.
Oh my gosh.
We got it in. We'd already done the other side, so it's kind of locked into position on one side, so shifting it around was a little bit harder, but we wouldn't be able to get the long arms on it if we did it in reverse. So.
There again, the benefits of working on a lift, but we're just two garage guys doing it the old-fashioned way, sweat and tears.
A lot of tears.
No blood yet. Maybe a little cursing, but that'd be about it. Okay, so
I'm gonna do the lower.
we're gonna go ahead and get the lower on that side, which should hopefully go in a lot easier. The uppers are a very difficult position and alignment when the axle's pretty much just floating here. Oh, we're finally getting close. Finally getting close.
Push it forward.
Right there.
But much harder. I don't know magic card.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys just a little breakdown. We had a little bit of a hard time getting the control arms lined up, but we did get everything in and tight. So basically, you know, this is our getting close to the finished product. You know, we've got both springs back in. In order to get the springs in now, take for granted that this truck has a 3-inch lift on it, and they are heavy springs. So what we did to accomplish getting the springs back into their positioning was to utilize a jack on either side of the axle and tip the axle to one side, get the spring in on the opposite side, and then we used the second jack to come under once the spring was in place in order to lift the axle back up and put that spring under pressure. And we connected the sway bars back in on both sides, got the shocks in on both sides, so the axle is re-supported back to the truck just as if it came from the factory. All finished product. I'm pretty happy with it. Everything lined up pretty nice. You know, if anybody's going to do this in their garage, you're going to find that there's definitely going to be some challenges involved in it. But for the most part, it can be done. And that's the key to this video, is to kind of give everybody that. So really all we have left right now is to go ahead and finish the brakes, get the new pads in, get the calipers reconnected. I'm getting ready to tie the vent into the rear axle and then the air locker tube. And from there, we should ultimately be to the point where we can go ahead and get the truck back on its wheels and back on the ground. We did wind up putting leveling spacers in on top of the axle on both sides, just so that the rear end is sitting in its proper angles. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with it. It turned out nice. It looks nice and clean. The 4-link suspension is going to definitely give the truck a lot more flexibility off-road. We're going to go ahead and finish up the brakes, get the wheels on, and I think, you know, I'm going to say about 14 hours in, 2 guys, all done in one day. It can be done. Just be patient, take your time, and make sure you got a good helper.
What didn't we like?
Actually, I think it worked pretty well. You know, the measurements are kind of
Janky on the
janky,
lower.
and the photographs are non-existent. There any kind of explanation or outline as to how to really do it.
Right. The instructions don't have the picture, not even the pictures you need. Right.
Yeah.
Lower control arm measurements to the rear are not correct.
Absolutely. You know, so
Well, according to the way they want you to measure it, it's incorrect.
yes, just they're not existent.
Right.
You know, you know, if they expected you to have it completely ran in, they should just say that.
Or how many threads? would be
Yeah,
helpful.
you know, I mean, anything would have been like, hey, you know, run this all the way down, back it out 2 threads, and lock the nut. You know, I mean,
Well, from a like technical standpoint, like obviously when they build it, they make them with a little bit of movement in it, just in case you have to make an adjustment on your lowest lip, which is 3 inches. But 3 to 4.5, I mean, they should kind of give you a reference, I guess, on like if it's going to be, you know, half of the shaft or anything.
the
40.
welding on the axle and them telling you, you know, hey, you should need to preheat the metal. If I don't know that, I got a torch out or brought a torch to do that.
Well, right, we had problems attaching the bracket to the to the metal of the axle,
Yeah.
which we don't know if it's because it's like a bi-metal or what, but the welder worked fine on just straight steel, but then when we tried to weld the bracket to the axle, we didn't get a good bead on it. I mean, you definitely need 2 jacks. You wouldn't be able to do it without 2 jacks.
Oh, there's just no way. I mean, there's no way. I mean, that video of them showing that guy doing that whole thing on a lift by himself. I don't buy that video for a minute.
Well, he probably has people off screen helping him.
Right.
Or like, it took him 3 days to do it. He just did a section at a time.
Right. They cut and edited together.
Oh, that's what you could do.
But I mean, I think we put the realest version together of what a normal person's gonna do that's gonna do it in the garage or do it on the driveway.
Right. Which, like I said, it's 11:40, so we've been going since essentially 8:30. But we also did more.
Yeah, we did a lot.
I mean, probably between the brakes and the diff cover, you're probably looking at maybe a 2-hour difference.
About 2 hours, yeah.
It'd probably be about a 12-hour install.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have had to go watch a YouTube video to figure out, hey, this one, why didn't you just state?
Or
The solid welded
you put a sticker on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, goes to the frame. So there's a lot of things I think the manufacturer could have done to make things a lot easier.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they just do that. They don't expect people to do it themselves. But still,
I would agree with that there. They probably think most people are gonna take it to a 4-wheel drive shop. And they're gonna have it up on a lift and they're gonna pay $2,000-3,000 in labor to have it done.
it would be a lot better if they made it for builders and like made it easy for builders, because then it would sell over other similar setups. Honestly, building it's the best because you get to understand like what it's for. Like if somebody else does it and you really don't even know when you go off road, you know, what's happening,
Right.
and why it's happening.